evening. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White, our Wednesday evening edition. Uh, hey, Allan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How about you? How's
I'm
everything?
doing good. Hey, Jim.
Good evening. I think I'm okay. I just had to turn off my VPN. So if I was spinning around there for a second, I think I'm okay now.
Right. Adolph will not be joining us this evening, but we're going to have a spirited conversation. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Allan. Those of you that watch Detroit in Black and White, I don't know if you guys saw the new intro, but he did a wonderful job on the intro. We have recent photos of us, and also Jim's picture is formally on our intro for the show, which is awesome. I think you did an awesome job.
Thank you.
I also want to say good evening to Janet as well as Ronald. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Anybody else that wants to join in, please do so. Hit that like button, like, subscribe, and share. And you could join us on all social media platforms, including Facebook. And I want to say good evening to those that are joining us from Facebook. Now, I do have a bone to pick with you guys. Last week, I was on Zoom. I got text messages. Y'all didn't tell me I look crazy sitting up there on the on the screen. I look absolutely insane sitting up there on the screen on Saturday. And no, neither one of you said it. None of y'all said it.
I didn't notice any problem.
Oh
You,
my God.
you were far away from us, so we couldn't really see you that good.
Oh, you look
I was
crazy.
putting my glasses back on and off because I could hardly see much. I
I
couldn't see
look like so I had the phone, it was close up, and somebody said, Girl, you look like Dolly Parton. I was like, please, Lord Jesus. No.
Well, she's beautiful, so what's the problem?
So
What's wrong with Dolly Parton?
That's a big leap, Dolly Parton.
right. I said, my people didn't tell me that I look like Dolly Parton. But yeah, and then I did get a text from one of our viewers. They was like, nice view. I was like, what the hell are they talking about? And so I went back and looked. I was like, yeah, I look crazy.
You
So
looked far away, and then you were kind of coming in. I don't know.
and you couldn't tell my beautiful skin, my beautiful smile. Yeah, I'm bragging about myself. But if you don't tell yourself you're beautiful, nobody else will. But I was like, oh no. So the next time I'll make sure that I have my um, notebook with me when I decide to go out of town so that I can zoom in from the notebook. But anyway, I digress. So, Alan, what are we going to talk about?
Well, I think we were saying that we were going to talk a little bit about an article I did in Deadline Detroit.
Okay.
Two of the I just thought it was worth asking. There are two of the candidates. One, Todd Perkins, attorney Todd Perkins, moved in at the end of 2023
Mhm.
from Grosse Pointe Shores to Detroit. He's a Detroiter who lived in the burbs, and he sold his home in Grosse Pointe Shores, moved back to his old childhood home at the
Mhm.
north end of Detroit. And then the other candidate who moved in shortly before, just in the nick of time, so to speak, was Reverend Solomon Kinlock Jr. And he still has a house. He has 7 churches. I mean, he's not, two of the churches. He
Oh,
has,
never triumph. So I'm
yeah, yeah,
very
yes.
aware.
So
Yeah.
there's two branches here in Detroit, and then there's one in Flint, Southfield. So he's all around. So I mean, it's not like he's abandoning his flock by living outside the city. His flock is in a lot of places, but he has a $1.5 million home in Oakland Township, which is a beautiful community. Uh, he moved back to the city. And originally, I think the original address, which I had looked into it previously, it technically it seems to be fine. He moved into a place on Michigan Avenue there, right downtown, and I can't remember if it's a Hyatt or a Hilton hotel, but it's like you can stay for a day, a week, or months. And he checked into there for a little bit. That was his first place address. Then he moved to a few other places. Now he has an apartment in the Greektown area in a nice building. Uh, I thought it was fair to ask, like people are taking shots, like Santil Jenkins is saying, well, shows, he hasn't sold his house. And Santil Jenkins it made comments to Detroit News, well, he's not showing much of a commitment. So I thought it was a fair question to ask what your intentions are, even if you lose the race. And so he said through his spokesperson, Dan Legina, he said, we're going to win the race. We're not going to engage in hypotheticals. Now, Todd had, which that, I mean, I don't know how you guys read that, but
I read it as a politician for the pastor to say that he's not a politician. That was a very political statement, if you ask me. He answered the question that he wanted to answer, but go ahead.
And then Todd says, Detroit is my home. I love residing in the home where I was raised, the home that my great-grandfather worked tirelessly to purchase and pass on to his children, and now it rests in my hands. While I'm confident that I will be the next mayor of the city of Detroit, I will remain in this home. I recognize my city needs me in any capacity. It will be my goal to bring back as many Detroiters who left, others who will pledge allegiance to the spirit of Detroit. The city needs leadership, and I will give all that I have to it. Yes. So yes, I will stay. And, whether he ends up not staying or whatever, that's really, I think, what voters want to hear. But, and I mentioned in the story that Mike Duggan moved from Livonia to Detroit for the to run for mayor. Dave Bing moved from Franklin to Detroit to run for mayor. I believe he kept his house out there, and I think his wife stayed there most of the time.
That he did.
And so I had a friend of mine showed me a retired police officer, I think someone in the ranks, who was like, this story's fucking bullshit. It's racist. Why do they ask the black candidates? Well, there's 7 candidates. There's 9 candidates. All are black. And 7 of them live in the city. They didn't move into the city. And so I think there's nothing wrong with moving into the city. It's great. It shows your commitment or whatever, but it's not an unreasonable question to ask. I mean, we were saying, I think if Mike Duggan had lost the election and moved back to Livonia, I mean, it wouldn't have lasted forever, but people would have given him a lot of grief. And people still talk about Mike Duggan, the Livonia man.
Oh, they still talk about Mike Duggan, the Livonia man, but I don't know if they would give him that much grief. And I don't know how much, what the outcome is going to be. Of course, we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I don't know if the outcome is not in favor of Reverend Kinlock or Attorney Perkins, I don't think it would be a story as to whether or not they stay in the city or not. I think that is very interesting that I feel like I look at it, it's really not a non-story for me. Because as you pointed out so eloquently in your article, you've had other people to move in, like the current mayor, to move into the city to run for mayor. You have people all over the country that move into different areas to run for an office. You had Hillary Clinton that moved from one area to another area so she could run for office. So I think that, I don't think that it's a real issue. I think that, at least for me, I'm going to speak for myself. There are some voters who do think that way, though, Allan. I think that was fair for you to bring it up because there are some people, and I've talked to some people who take issue with it. What you say, Jim?
Well, it's an interesting question, but I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. These 2 gentlemen, and I know neither one of them, other than the interview we had with them on Detroit in Black and White. I don't know Todd Perkins. I don't know Reverend Kinlock. They are both talented, educated, movers and shakers in the community. These guys have made significant contributions to the city of Detroit and the surrounding communities. I don't care where they live. As a former police officer that had to move into the city on the date of hire, it had no impact on me whether I was going to do a good job. And I'm not trying to compare police officer to mayor, but I had to live in the city at that time, back in the dark ages, the day I was hired. It made no difference to me whether I lived in the city or didn't live in the city. I was going to do the job I would do. And Todd Perkins and Reverend Kinlock have both done great jobs. I said this on our last show or a couple of shows ago. These men have made significant contributions, and we're ignoring the contributions in some cases. You know, James Craig didn't live in Detroit when he was appointed chief of police. He was in Los Angeles, right? How did that impact his time as a police chief in Detroit? And again, I'm not to compare the two, but I care that he's where he lives the day he's elected and the day that he takes office.
And you know what, Jim? That's why I said for me, it's a non-issue. But what I do think that people should look at is, you know, people are focusing on, well, he didn't live here, he moved here so he could run for office. The fact of the matter is, a lot of people have done it, but why did they move away? Why did they move out of the city? I'm going to use myself as an example. When I graduated from college, I got married and we started a family. Listen, I did not want my kids going to DPS. So we moved, right? Has it ever occurred to some of these people who are making these criticisms that maybe they're looking out for their families, and now that their families are older, that they can come back into the city and contribute? And they were doing it all along. But that's something that people really don't want to talk about. They want to point their fingers at something, to me, that for me, it is of no moment. It is.
I'll ask a question here. If it
and I moved back into the city.
And this may not. I'm curious. You know, Kwame Kilpatrick, former mayor of Detroit, lives in Novi. Do you think that matters to anybody?
I don't think that matters to anybody. As a matter of fact, he was the other day, I saw on, I don't know if you guys saw, but it was on the news, as well as, you know, I watch YouTube. New Era Detroit was in his old neighborhood passing out basketball, footballs, and meals and stuff like that. And he joined them. He's giving back to the community. He's working in the community. So to your point, Jim, these two candidates are people that have always worked in the community, like myself. Even though I didn't live in the community at one point in time, I was still coming in the community doing whatever I can and continue to do that. But the point of the matter is, no, I don't think it makes a difference. I really don't. Now, I did find it interesting that he was out there with New Era Detroit. I would say that. But yeah, go ahead, Allan.
When people move back to the city and say, you know, I'm running for Detroit because I love the city. I want to do great for the city. I love it. It's in my part of my DNA or whatever. And then they lose and move out. That bothers me a little bit. I'm not saying any of these people will move out, but does it bother me that people are like, I'm here? You know, I expect. Look, John James. You know, there were always rumors of him living in Farmington Hills all the time, and I know people who saw him there. And he registered and that wasn't in his district. He registered in Shelby Township, which I don't know that he lived there much of the time. And do I want, at least at minimum, someone elected to be living in my district, in my community? Yes.
Well, yeah, Mike Rogers did the same thing, and Sri Thanadar did the same thing. Did you ask the question to them? And I think maybe whoever that person was that said that to you, maybe they're thinking, well, did you ask all these people, you know, if they would stay in the city if they didn't prevail? Now, what's interesting is,
I only asked because there were only two candidates who moved in just at the deadline or near the deadline. The other people have been here. And so, look, nobody has to live here forever. If, you know, at some point, maybe you want to move to Florida, Arizona, California, wherever, you're entitled. You don't have to. I mean, we've all contributed to this community in different ways. We don't owe every last drop of blood here for the community, but some people feel that way. But I don't begrudge anyone. Look, Kwame lives in Novi. That's fine. You know, I think he has some reason. He has mixed. I think he loves Detroit, but I think he has some mixed feelings about Detroit.
You know what? He's probably like a lot of us. There's no place like home. I was listen, once my sons had you know, became adults, there was no reason for me not to move back home. I think a lot of people are like, there's no place like home. Like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, which happens to be one of my favorite movies.
Oh,
But go ahead. Go
I have
ahead.
a question for the both of you. Are there any other candidates that own real estate outside the city of Detroit? And I'm going to tell you the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But I don't want to beat up on that candidate because I don't believe
But
that.
Suntail Jenkins has some house out in Georgia in the land area, whatever. But it's like you shouldn't be precluded from owning property elsewhere. And she has relatives down there. She says they use the house sometimes.
I'm not attacking her at all.
No, I'm saying, but that was asked, and that I thought was not that germane of really a question. Okay, you're living here, you've been living here the whole time. It's like, look, at some point, we had city council members during the bankruptcy. They were moving out of Detroit. They were, screw this place. I'm done with it. I give
I would
up.
say the three people that you mentioned, that we mentioned, each of them would be a fine mayor. And Karen says that the voters care. The voters will care. They didn't care about Mike Duggan until they were happy with what he was doing, right? It was, Livonia Mike and et cetera, until he came. And then if they were supportive of him, the residency didn't matter. So what day do they have to live here? How long do they have to live here? How long after they leave? And I know you said, you'd have to give every ounce of blood, but these people are given to this community. Suntail Jenkins was in charge of the heat and warmth fund. I don't care if she lived in Novi. I don't care if the mayor's chief of staff lives in Berkeley. If they're doing what they came here to do, other than elected officials, we shouldn't. We asked them to do it.
I'm sorry. I like it when the police chief lives in the city. I like it when the mayor's press secretary lives in the city, when the mayor, when I just feel like one of the chief, I'm not saying that they're all living here in Detroit, but if the chief of staff or something living in West Bloomfield, it's like, hey, not good enough. Detroit's not good enough for you. You don't want to live in the city, but you want to get,
What if they say, no, not right now. That's why I'm working here to make it better so I can move back.
But I lived under the restrictions. I lived under residency.
I'm just trying to spur the conversation, but we need to take a break. We're going to acknowledge our viewers and then we'll get back to this conversation.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
There was a time as a kid I lived in an abandoned house. My first sermon was to 26 people. Now we're 40,000 strong. I'm Solomon Kinlock. Direct action has been my life's work, delivering groceries to thousands of families in need. My plan, tackle poverty with training for jobs that pay $35 an hour, build 10,000 affordable homes, and make every neighborhood benefit from investment, not just downtown. I'm Solomon Kinlock. Lift every block.
Oh, okay. That's a nice commercial. So one thing that we don't do is we don't shy away from the comments. So, somebody shot fired, Jim. So we're going to get to that comment. First of all, I want to say hello to Edward A. He said, good evening. D say, hello, everyone. Stay safe and blessed. Beautiful family. Kenneth Powell, love it. He says, salutes to all the guys and goddesses. He also is telling everybody to like, share, and subscribe. He called it edutainment. Karen Winston says, good evening. And she indicated that it does make a difference to taxpayers. Stephanie Jackson says, hello, everyone. Karen also said the strategies. Sam said, good evening to you all. Chip Tracy, who is a advocate for Whitney Clark, he said he's gaining steam. District 5 write-in candidate. Write his name in. He said, what happened to Willie? He was supposed to be on. I don't know. Ashley said shootings happening too much on the east side. Deborah G said Kwame needs to give back the money he owes the city. And then she asked Jim, she said, Jim, who you speaking for? You don't know what the people in the city of Detroit think about White Mike from Livonia and G Money.
I do. They elected him 3 times, so they must be supporting him regardless of whether he lived in Livonia or Brighton or Detroit or Saginaw. They still elected him, what, 3 or 4 times?
Right. And,
So obviously,
low turnout.
Obviously, he had some popularity enough to get elected. So that's all. I'm not a Mike Duggan fan, but I'm just referring to once he took office and he did what the people were satisfied with, and some people must have been satisfied with him.
Right.
Then he did what they expected. So
Absolutely.
my point is, it doesn't matter if he lived on 6 Mile and Gratiot or in Southwest Detroit. The people liked what he did. So maybe not everybody. Criticizing him because he lived in Livonia before he became mayor doesn't seem very legitimate to me, because he became mayor and then he was reelected.
More than once. G Money Hollywood says voters turnout at the city and state levels are horrific. Mayor will win with less than 80,000 vote turnout. I think any local state public official should live in the city or state they're representing. So one of the things one of our viewers talked about is that she talked about shootings over on the east side. And one of the other things that we said that we were going to talk about, she said shootings happening too much on the east side. One of the things that we were talking about, because, hey, we're in the middle of the election season, is some of the issues that the candidates are talking about. And one of the issues is crime. And Allan and I was talking before we got on air that you have, I mean, we know that crime goes up. I know from a lawyer's perspective, especially on the weekends, listen, everybody, they're getting juiced up, tripping. By Monday, they bring their attitudes to court and everything. But, crime goes up when it's, warm weather and that kind of thing. But it's off the chain. It was something that happened on 7 Mile and Myers, people standing on top of cars, and I think a house or something caught on fire. The mayor came out, made a statement and said, listen, the people that would usually handle these type of situations, they weren't on duty at that time, but now we're going to have them working during that time. And I got a call. Somebody told me about something on 6 Mile that happened. Every candidate for mayor has talked about crime is an issue. Now we have a new chief of police. He's new in terms of, he was recently appointed as chief of police. What do you think that the mayor can do as it relates to crime?
I've covered crime I was in the Lansing Bureau back in the 80s. I covered prisons. When I came down to Detroit, I covered the federal courthouse, but I also covered some local crime and stuff like that. And the thing that bothers me is that there's still not enough innovation to deal with crime. I mean, we know, just covering the prison system, we know we've captured a group of people who have committed crimes. Instead of trying to figure out what it is, mental health, jobs, whatever. I mean, in the state prison, I think the federal prison system makes people have jobs. Last I checked, the state did not, and maybe that's changed since. But we know a group of people are coming back into society, and we don't have anything, half the time for them to do except, they have to report to their probation officer, but financially, training, psychologically to come back in, particularly if you're gone for 5 years, 10 years. I took a tour when I was in Lansing, in the Lansing Bureau. I took a tour with the warden of Jackson Prison, and I was talking to we were walking around. I was talking to an inmate, been in for 5 years. He says, I'm maxing out in September. I'm never coming back. I told my mama, never coming back here again. And I told that to the warden, and the warden looked at me and said, he's maxing out? And I go, yeah. He goes, he'll be back. And, essentially he's maxed out. He didn't get any good behavior because he was probably a troublemaker and stuff like that. And so I think the innovation is just we're not doing enough. And as we say, it's not just the cop's job. It's the teacher's job. It's the community job. There's just so many different things, and we lay it all on the feet of the cops to, make things perfect.
But now the mayoral candidates are talking about it, and so do you think they're just talking about it for conversation's sake, or do you think there's some things that can be done? I mean, the current mayor, he started with a spot shooter. Is that what they call it? Yeah, spot shooter.
Shot stopper or whatever it is.
Whatever. I see it in reports all the time. But I mean, it doesn't. I don't know what the stats are, but the people who comment on Detroit Black and White, like Ashley, it's like, look, it's off the chain. So what do you think the mayor could do, Jim? You're a former police officer. What do you think the mayor could do?
You're talking about reactionary shot stop. These things are all reactionary. Green light. They're reporting a crime after it happens. So, I'm going to go back to one of my favorite guests we had on the show, Dr. West, Cornell West, who ran for president. Crime comes from poverty, right? It starts at the bottom rung of our societies. You can't stop crime unless you eliminate poverty, and nobody's interested in doing that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the New York mayoral contest,
but
it's bigger than that, right? It's bigger than that. These kids, they have if their parents had jobs, if everything went the way it needed to be, we wouldn't have the kind of crime rates we have. So it starts with poverty. If we can eliminate poverty, we can eliminate crime. But you can't start with crime and work your way back. That's my position.
I think that's I agree that that's a good part of it, but it's a little simplistic to just say eliminate poverty, get rid of crime. I mean, mental health. There's compulsive, impulsive people out there who lose their shit.
Agreed. I don't disagree with that.
And they get mad or whatever. They shoot somebody over something like, what did you say to me? Whatever. I think poverty is certainly a core of crime. I mean, some people commit crimes out of necessity to earn, but education, I think if people had the tools, there's people who become dyslexic. They are dyslexic.
That's all part of the same process. Right. Education comes from poverty. Lack of education.
I'm going to ask you guys this question. Do you think they really want to get rid of poverty? Do you really believe that these politicians, local, those that are not on the local level, that they really want to get rid of poverty?
Well, the problem is it's such a broad word. And when we have candidates on here all the time and they say, I want to, get rid of crime. I want to have better jobs. I want to do this and that. But we don't hear a lot of specifics. And so poverty is such a massive, massive word. And how do you attack poverty? It's like there are ways through job programs, through subsidies of whatever, but it's such a massive thing that we don't know how to really tackle it here in most major cities. Detroit's a very impoverished city.
So let me say this. So when you talk about poverty, and we hear, like we said, that we have these candidates talking about, jobs, affordable housing. I don't even know what that means, affordable housing. I will say this. There are a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in the comments section who really don't want to live next to somebody who is dependent on the system to take care of them, housing vouchers and such. We're talking about people that are poor, right? Because what is the likelihood of them, keeping up their property, being responsible? I'm just saying that is a mindset of a lot of people. But there are also people on the flip side who benefit from poverty. So my question has always been, and will continue to be, do these people really want to get rid of poverty? Do they really want to get rid of crime? Are these just sound bites? Do you think that these people are really sincere?
Be specific when you say, I'm just curious, I think I have some idea. When you say they're benefiting from crime, what are you thinking when you say that?
So I'm going to use an example of let's see.
The justice system.
Well, definitely the justice system. I mean, when we talk about, I'm glad you said that. When we talk about prisons and things like that, who owns the prisons? You have people who benefit from providing the food to the justice system. You do have professionals going in there, giving them therapy and things like that. But really, again, it's a revolving door. That's something that you just talked about a few minutes ago. There are some, I I just don't think that is not one. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think people really want to get rid of poverty. Two, I think there are too many opportunities for people to benefit off of poor people. I believe that, and I will continue to believe that until the day that I die.
Are you talking about federal systems like welfare systems? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, I think about that too. Absolutely. So listen, we're in the middle of this election season. We have quite a few mayoral candidates talk about affordable living. My question is, what does that mean? Okay, so we're talking about the city of Detroit. What is the Allan? Maybe you know this. What is the median income for a family?
I think it's 30,000 or
38, maybe something. I think it's
38, and that's for a family of how many?
Probably 3 or 4.
Okay, yeah. About 4 people, $38,000. So what kind of housing do you think that someone that's trying to provide for 4 people? You got to have transportation, you got to have food, you have to have all the other necessities. What kind of housing do you think that they will be able to afford?
Well, I mean, some people own homes, and in some neighborhoods there is some really still cheap housing for rentals and stuff like that. And some, I was driving home from a party Saturday night on the east side on East Outer Drive, and I took the side streets home. I came down East Warren, and it still looks so. There are burned out homes. There are blocks where there's a house. I stopped at a red light. It was probably about midnight, and it was just eerie.
Stopped at the light?
Yeah. Well, I ran it after a while. I'm sitting there looking around. There's an empty field right next to it, and I thought, I think nobody's around. I'm going to run this red light. But
do not stop at the light. Don't stop. Keep going.
There is some cheap housing, but look, that's not a lot of money for a family of 4.
Exactly.
It's 39,575 now.
Okay, so 39.75 now for family.
575.
Family of 4, and some people have more than your 2 kids, whatever, more kids or whatever. It's expensive. The world's expensive. You go out to eat now, it's like even McDonald's is not that cheap anymore. I mean,
it's real food.
Yeah. I mean, you get a Little Caesars pizza for $7.
Great comments, Karen. Great comments. You're right. Mass shootings will not, poverty will not eliminate. We have exceptions to the rule. I'm more talking about core values of a society, right? When you're making $39,000 a year and you have 4 kids, you're more worried about putting food on the table than making sure Junior gets home from school at 4 o'clock. Unfortunately. Right. That's just the way it works sometimes.
Right.
I'm talking about more core values. It's an oversimplification. I understand that. But, the communities that have higher crime are communities that typically have higher poverty rates.
Look, right. I don't know what it is now, but I used to, when I was at the Detroit News and I covered federal law enforcement and, the DEA and everything, I could never quite do the whole story, but there was an underground economy in Detroit. You go to Northland on Saturday. I had a friend who had a clothing store with his father, and dope dealers would come in and with their crew and tell everyone pick out a $500 suit, which back then was a lot of money. You'd see people in the jewelry stores. You'd see fancy cars out in Northland, and there was a whole underground economy. And some of these kids who are working, in crack house and stuff, were making $500-600. They're 16 years old. They're making $500-600 a week. I never made that kind of money at that age. That was a lot of money. I used to talk to White Boy Rick when he was in prison. He'd tell me he was 16, 17. He had a couple $100,000 laying around the house. There was a whole economy out there, and there were no other jobs out there. And so that provided jobs and stuff. And that's up to, society or whatever to provide jobs so people can get legitimate jobs and not end up getting.
Some people don't want legitimate jobs. Some people don't want to do that. Some don't. People don't want to talk about that, but that is the reality. Some people are very okay with where they are. Okay. So when you start talking about affordable housing for who? And what does that mean? I want to go to some of our comments, though.
Perfect. That's where I wanted to go.
Dennis Bryan says, whoever becomes the new mayor, we can't tax our way out of financial troubles. Cops should be placed on certain appointed positions. Jill Sheridan says there needs to be more assistance, fewer hurdles for those who serve time.
Right on, Jill. Right on, Jill.
Yep. Karen, Miss Ashley says Karen Whitsett, who is running for city council, she said that Karen Whitsett said she got millions for new police cameras.
G Money, Hollywood, talking about the playing field. I'm sorry, go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah. G Money says at the public official level, it's imperative to live where you represent. Your job is not just a 9-to-5. It's living and caring for the area you represent. Take the city money and spend it on another city, ? Dennis Bryant says, how would the new mayor tackle the issue of mental health? Good question. G Money says everyone is not giving a
equal or level, I think.
Playing field. Whites typically have the complexion to avoid poverty. Poverty is designed, and it starts with oppressing a group of people to keep them from competing and excelling. Dennis Bryant said, with COVID funds ending soon.
That's a great point. It's easy to run government when the federal government keeps throwing money at you like they've done for the last 5 years. That money's running out. That's a great point. It's easy, as I said the other day. The financial people, if you have your money, your 401, whatever, they're all happy. It's easy running somebody's financial account when the economy is growing or when the stock market's growing. It only gets tough when things go bad. Right. And when things are easy, in comparison, COVID funds are making these governments run efficiently. What's going to happen when they're gone is a great point.
Yeah. So the other issue that we're going to talk about is that go hand in hand is one of the other issues that the candidates are talking about is education. My opinion is it's a talking point. My opinion is for 30 years, nothing has changed. My opinion is when I look at other communities, for instance, the Jewish community, when I drive around on Southfield Oak Park, they're building schools for their kids. Okay. They're taking care of their community. When are we going to take care of our community and stop looking for other people to take care of because it's clear nothing's going to change. That's my opinion. Allan, Jim?
Go ahead, Allan. I have my own thought.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm always puzzled by, like, even when Dan Gelbart is building all these, new residential structures, when, he bought the Free Press building, turned it into whatever, condos or I can't remember if they're apartments or condos. Gary Torgo's building down on the riverfront. And I never hear schools being a component there, of the whole process. Like here, why is that not? I mean, it really just creates a situation. As you say, some people, young couples, move into the city, and then when it's time to have children, they're moving out. Mm-hmm. There are exceptions. I know in Woodbridge, I've talked to some people who send their kids to the public school, and they're right. Really happy with it. But it's got to, I mean, all this stuff going on. Actually, interestingly, in the 30s, Julius Rosenwald, and if you've never seen this film before, it's called Rosenwald. He was Jewish. He was I think the founder of Sears and Roebuck. He built thousands of schools for Black children in the South, and some of the racists down there were burning the schools down, and they rebuilt them. But education is, as you say, I mean, poverty. Maybe people are less educated, have less opportunities. And not to say that, certainly a college degree isn't a guarantee of a great job or anything like that. But we are letting down. I mean, it's so painful to see what's happening in the city of Detroit, that people are sending their kids outside to cities like Oak Park and Inkster and, everywhere else. But the schools should be the cornerstone. I mean, when people move out to Bloomfield Hills, they send their kids to public schools. They don't have to send them to private schools because they're happy with the school district. I think that's, we're sort of the way it's set up right now. The system's almost set up to fail. The school system becomes an island unto itself. It becomes an island unto itself. The superintendent is in charge of that, and the mayor is supposed to be like, no, well, I don't really have anything to do with it. The council's like, well, that's the school board or whatever. It's like, we're all one city here. Why, you create these little fiefdoms that don't succeed on their own.
So,
thank you, Mr. Ashley, for your comments.
I want Jim to say something, then I'm going to start something. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Well, you said it's just a talking point, or it's just, and you're absolutely right. And this is why we have designed. I wish Adolph was here, because Adolph is in favor of the city government running the school system. Now, you can argue for or against it. It scares me, to be honest, but we have designed the schools to operate independently of the city government. So it doesn't matter what city you work in. People think that it's one organization, and it's not one organization. We have created a lottery system that was supposed to finance the school system, right?
Right.
What happened there? There's not enough money. People are spending. You go to your local convenience store and people are throwing 50s, 100s. There's money going into the lottery system. I don't understand how much it funds the schools. But back to your point, they're independent. I think they should be independent, but people don't hold school systems accountable because they're not familiar that they're operating independently.
And people in the community don't hold themselves accountable. Listen, if you can we got so many churches in the city of Detroit, and we have mega churches. People throw big dollars to the building fund. How about building fund for a school? How about a building fund in the neighborhood where your people go to church? How about that? It used to be back in the day, that's what they did. They didn't look for the education system or the Department of Education to educate the community. The community took care of itself. But people aren't doing that. And in my mind, and I'm not making any disparaging comment about any of the candidates. I just think, and nobody has said this, I think it's just a talking point. I don't believe anything is going to change. Y'all can talk about it. We're going to have matter of fact, we're going to have a forum this Saturday that Detroit Black and White is participating in. I'm the participant, and I'm sure they're going to talk about it. And hopefully they're watching this show, and maybe they'll have some real answers. But I find it very interesting that people could throw money at what they want to throw it at. Hey, we want to build this big church. We want to have this mega church. We want to build this building. But nobody is talking about building schools, the community. And when I say nobody, I'm talking about the community. I'm talking about the community. We're going to go to a commercial, and then we'll come back.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990, or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
by the way, I stand corrected. As Janet Selleck says, Allan, the Inkster school system was dissolved in 2013 due to 15 mil deficit. I stand corrected, but there are schools downriver where I think maybe River Rouge or whatever, there are school districts where people are going outside of the city, and this school system just keeps shrinking and shrinking. And I agree with you, Vanessa, that there's a lot of great talking points where people are suddenly going, yeah, we've got to do something about our schools, but we have to like reincorporate the whole system, and maybe it's putting a council member on the board to represent the city government as opposed to just a school district. And that's not the solution, obviously, but
that may be a solution. My problem is I don't want Kwame Kilpatrick running the school district and the city of Detroit. There's cities in this community, there's school boards that are corrupt, but they don't infect a organization, a city that isn't corrupt. When you make it all encompassing, you have a lot more opportunity for bad things to happen. That's what I was talking about when I was scared. It's the city of Detroit and the Detroit school district are two huge organizations, billions of dollars. If they come together, I just think it's overwhelming.
Well, you know what, Jim? There are some people who feel the same way. People who watch this show have said to me, listen, I don't think that the mayor should take over the school system. But my thing is, even if they were to take over the school system, what's going to change? Nothing. The culture has to change. The community has to change. The community has to want. It is not the 13% that vote. See, that is a problem in and of itself. Oh, I was trying to make a point that, like in your community, Allan, I see it all the time. I'm telling you, I drive out of Oakland County all the time. Schools being built for their children. We're not dependent on you guys to do that. We're doing it ourselves. That's the community. Our community is not doing that. And guess what? We could sit here and they could talk about what they're going to do for schools. They could talk about affordable housing, what they're going to do for poverty. I don't think anything is going to change. And I am one of those people who believe in the good of people. I'm one of those people who wants change. But until the people change their mindset and say, hey, we got to get our hands dirty and get on our elbows, just like our leader, to make a difference. If they don't do that, you're going to continue to see the same thing. So, quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing about it.
Well,
I want to see it. You could talk about it, but action speaks louder than words.
Well, we had one of the council members during I think it was the Charlie LaDuff debate, the Charlie LaDuff show, who said, I don't send my kids to the school district here. I send them to a private school. And some people were outraged about that. And yet.
Who said that?
The council member.
Durhall.
Fred Durhall.
Yeah.
He had said that, and some people were mad after, but Fred's like, hey, I'm looking out for my daughter. I'm gonna send her where I think it's best for her. And it's so what happens is Fred Durhall is in even a position to impact the kind of community that the schooling in our city here. But it's an issue. It's an issue here.
So maybe you and Jim can answer this question for me, because I'm ignorant. I have no idea. We talk about the Michigan lottery, and Karen Winston brought up the Michigan lottery is Michigan's best kept secret. Wasn't the lottery passed, and wasn't the money supposed to go to all the school districts in the state of Michigan?
In the state, yeah. In the state, but we have the casinos. I think some money, is generating revenue for the city. I don't know what percentage goes to education, but we have 3 casinos here that are making money.
So then my question becomes, then if that's the case, how is it you brought up the West Bloomfield School District? There's other school districts that's doing well, and they're getting money from the Michigan Lottery. What's the difference between them and, say, an Inkster School District that doesn't exist anymore, or Detroit Public Community School District? What's the difference?
People may say tax base, but I think you also have parents, and certainly there are parents who are involved here in Detroit.
What's that
But
noise?
I don't know. But I think that, I mean, it's key to having a good education is for parents to be concerned, at least concerned enough to say they don't. I mean, my parents weren't like, hey, they didn't know my teachers' names. They weren't that involved, but they wanted to make sure I had a decent report card. And I went to school with Adolph. We went to school at Oak Park High. It wasn't.
I went to school in the suburbs.
Yeah, it wasn't. Well, the question was, it wasn't like, are you going to college? It was like, what college are you going to?
Mhm.
And that it wasn't even a question. It was just part of, growing up there, that it was like, with the exceptions of a few people didn't go, but really, the lion's share of people just went to college. They didn't even think about it, twice. So I think part of that is setting, standards and getting the right mentors and catching kids when they're younger, when they're in third grade, fourth grade, when you see, I mean, we have to have social workers, we have to have tutors, we have to have people. Kids have low self-esteem when they have, they can't read, they can't do math and stuff like that. You create low self-esteem, and how do they do that? So they drop out early, and
So, I still say it lays at the feet of the community. Uh, uh, Dwayla Boy said exactly Vanessa school. I don't know what else she was trying to say, but hey, D Love, G Money says the United States educational system falls behind the eight ball on a global level, is completely indoctrinated and high illiteracy both in the cities, rural areas, and suburban surroundings. We all, and then it cuts off. Janice Deluxe says you already read her comment. G Money says no, the resources. Oh, it's a continuation. Know that the resources are not shared equally, so that rural and city kids can compete with suburban areas. Why is our system scared to distribute on equal playing field? That's interesting. Dennis Bryan says there was no forward thinking when it came to improving the infrastructure of schools. There has been many proposals to improve the schools, but a lot of schools still have old infrastructure, like lack of ventilation. Um, Ashley said we homeschooled during the antebellum. Lewis, and I can't pronounce the last name. I don't want to
Thoreau,
butcher.
maybe. Thoreau.
Okay, Thoreau says for or against residency for police and fire. That's a question, I guess, for the panel. Jill Sheridan says her big gripe is the public schools need to be brought up to the standard where people don't feel it's necessary to go outside their school, their zone school district. Edward A says he thinks that one of our problems with our education is our current adults are not educated enough to teach our current kids. Chip Tracy said Trump is about to end education back, about to send education back to the state. Stephanie Jackson says lotteries should be distributed to counties for schools based on sales.
Well, that's an interesting point Stephanie makes.
Yeah, very interesting points. That's something it had not even crossed my mind. But even with distributing the funds, um, as it stands now, aren't the schools getting money? And I don't know how they distribute it, but we know that the test scores across the United States are terrible. But I think all of us talk about taking care of home, and here at home, it's not looking good.
Do
And
you
here,
see any of these candidates, Vanessa? Do you see any of them having the time, or Allan, the time or opportunity to fix the schools? Or do you think trying to fix the city budget, whether it's building city roads or pushing snow or picking up trash or what, are they going to have time to think about the school districts? They're not.
not if they don't have to, if they're not tasked with
they're
it.
talking points. I think that once you had Adolph and you had Eric talking about education, And when Adolph started posing that question, don't you think the mayor, everybody jumped on that. And then you have some candidate that says, nobody else was talking about schools and improving schools until I started saying it. No, that's absolutely not true. But even if we say that what you say is true, even if we agree, do we really think it's going to happen? So I'm challenging people those few people that's going to go out and vote. Listen, vote with reality, not with dreams.
Yeah.
Don't fall for the sound bites. I'm sorry. I just think a lot of this stuff are sound bites. And I'm not saying that people don't have sincere hearts and that they want to see a change, but is it realistic for it to happen in the next 4 years? Absolutely not. I think Jim talked about just now. Do you think they're going to be concerned more about the budget? What do you think, Allan?
I mean, yeah, I mean, Jim brings up a point is that, I mean, you're tasked with the city it's like running a huge corporation. There are so many moving parts. There's personnel issues, there's crime issues, there's budget issues.
Buildings.
It's just an incredible job
Health.
to have. It's exhausting to me just to think about the task at hand and to take on a whole other component. I think that's why it was set up that way, thinking that, okay, we don't have the time here at the school board, but it's not a successful system. When you have high dropout rates, when you have high illiteracy rates, your school, and you have a incredible people are going to other systems like that, you have a failed system. It's like, what point do we get where we consider the school system failed or successful? And I think it's closer to failed than successful. And not to say, look, Cass Tech, I think is a really good school. There's still some good high schools. There's still some good elementary schools. But all in all, we're losing so many students to other school districts. And, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And the students are put at a disadvantage. I mean, the self-starters, survive. They go to good schools and they do well. But, we have to think about the average student too. We can't just, write them off and only say, oh, we'll but
I hate to say this, but it sounds as if they've been written off. But, who am I? Listen, the purpose of this show is to get people to think and spark conversation. Not everything that we say, I will say, not everything that I say do I necessarily believe. I'm just putting things out there to get people to have the conversation, to start thinking about things and start looking at things. We got an important election coming up. I don't think we're going to have a big voter turnout. I really don't. I would like for it to be a big voter turnout. Fortunately, we have some very, very good candidates. So, I mean, that's a good thing. So whoever wins, I think that we will win. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've had in the previous elections, like the last mayoral election, it was a zero. There was, I mean, I think Duggan got 80% of the vote or something like that. Coleman Young maybe got 30% of the vote. I think this election is actually going to be a truly competitive election. People sort of assume, rightly or wrongly, that Mary Sheffield will take one of those spots, and it's still a little bit of a wild card, although, I think the Kinloch people think they have it locked in. But it's going to be very competitive. We're going to see a lot more competitive than the last race, where Duggan didn't even want to debate, which was kind of shameful that he didn't debate, even though he was way ahead. I mean,
he said, I got this on lock. I don't have to.
Right, but
we have one of the candidates who's not debating. We have one of the candidates who's following that same playbook.
Yeah.
Some people who say that they're bothered by it, but listen, he's up in the poll, so it's working. If you're going out and you meeting people where they are, you talking to people where they are, you meeting people where they are, and you gaining their trust, then, I mean, some people say, well, what difference does it? Well, he said, what difference does it make whether or not I go and do a debate? I'd rather meet the people where they are and talk to the people
Right.
So,
Yep.
so we are coming to a close. This has been a very spirited conversation. I want to tell everybody, thank you so much for participating in Detroit in Black and White. We'll be back on Friday evening at 8:30 to 9:30. Please tell your friends about The Greatest Show on these YouTube streets, on these Facebook streets, Detroit in Black and White. Thank you guys very much. If I didn't get to your comment, it's not because I didn't want to, but you guys are really, participating, and so we can't get to all of them. But thank you so much. Join us again Friday. Have a good evening. What are your last words, Allan? And what are your last words, Jim?
I just wanted, this is on a lighter note. I watched the All-Star game last night. It was a little bit disheartening. The Tigers were so well represented, 6 Tigers, which I don't know if they've ever had that many before, but none of them got hits. They were 0 for 8. Scooble was the starting pitcher. He gave up 2 runs in the first, and then we had Casey Mize, who gave up another home run. So it wasn't exactly a banner day, but it was nice to see. It was nice to see everybody having a good time. But anyways, kind of irrelevant in the world, but
Jim?
I just want to thank everybody for their
that he's freezing.
Yeah, he's freezing. I think he said he wants to tell everybody thank you for their perspective and participation.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
All right. Okay, Jim. We'll see you guys on Friday evening. Thanks. Bye, Karen. Bye, Dwayla. Bye, G Money Hollywood.